Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Village of Deerfield Board of Trustees meeting for August 19, 2024. Roll call, please.
Mayor Shapiro.
Here.
Trustee Benton.
Here.
Trustee Berg.
Here.
Trustee Goldstone.
Here.
Trustee Jacoby.
Here.
Trustee Metz-Childers is absent. Trustee Oppenheim.
Here.
We have a quorum.
If we could all rise, and I would ask Hannah Sad to please lead us in the pledge of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are doubly and well represented tonight with both Ben and Hannah here. Thank you both for being here. Minutes of our prior meeting, August 5th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Bills and payroll. Do I have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Benton.
Yes.
Trustee Berg.
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone.
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby.
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Now is the time where we offer an opportunity for the public to make a comment, offer comments on a matter that's not on the agenda, a non-agenda item. I do have one email I'd like to read, but is there anyone who'd like to make a comment on a non-agenda item? The email that I'd like to read came in this afternoon about 4:45 or so, 10 to 5, from Tracy Merrill. Dear Board of Trustees, I'm writing a public comment for the meeting this evening on August 19, 2024, on a non-agenda item. I'm unable to attend due to an injury, so I would like to have this email serve as my public comment. I'm writing on behalf of not only my family, but my neighbors who have all incurred significant distress and anxiety due to the decision you have made to allow Pulte to develop in our neighborhood. We care deeply about our community, our neighborhood, our environment. This decision is more than heartbreaking. It's devastating to see 30 or 40 healthy trees and landscapes demolished, the homes of countless animals and birds destroyed, and most importantly, the place we call home forever changed. The angst that Mary Oppenheim was so eager to address has only led to chaos and pain for us. We trusted that this board would protect our interests, but instead we've been left wondering, shouldn't the board be looking out for us? Shouldn't you be protecting our community from big developers who come in and unnecessarily destroy the environment we live in? This entire experience has been emotionally damaging, causing several of us to question why we even live here. What kind of community fails to support the lives of those who reside within it? What kind of leadership sides with corporate interests over people it was elected to serve? It feels as though our concerns have been completely ignored while developers are given free rein to tear up the land regardless of the impact on the surrounding neighborhood. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The Board of Trustees still has the opportunity to reverse its decision and require Pulte to maintain the berm. Doing so would demonstrate to us and to the entire community that you are committed to doing what's right for the people who live here. It would show that you won't allow big corporate developers to ruin our environment, harm our ecosystem, damage our property values, and act without consequence. By taking the step, you wouldn't be backing down or admitting fault. You would be showing us your integrity. The decision you make now will define the legacy of this board. Will you stand with the people you were elected to serve, or will you continue to side with those who prioritize profit over community? I urge you to make the right choice. Tracy Merrill. I read this because Tracy's been here on several occasions, and tonight she can't be here, but I thought it best to read the comment. In February of 24, the Plan Commission held a pre-filing conference for Pulte's development. Also, on February 24, the Plan Commission had a pre-filing conference on part of that development. There were two pre-filing conferences, same development. In March, the Plan Commission held a public hearing. on both requests. In April, the Plan Commission continued the public hearing from that March date and unanimously approved by a vote of 4-0 the requested applications by Pulte. In May of 24, the Plan Commission conducted document approval and approved the documents unanimously. In May of 24, the board approved a request for preliminary development for that project unanimously by a vote of 6-0. From time to time, the board, staff, myself, trustees have communicated with the neighbors in order to try to respond to their concerns. All right, any public comment aside from what I just spoke about on a non-agenda item? First matter, 2478-1, consideration and action on the report and recommendation of the Plan Commission on a request for finding of substantial conformance for a final development plan for transit-oriented development for Continental Properties consisting of a 254-unit rental development at the rear 10.79 acres of Deerbrook Shopping Center.
At its meeting on June 27th, 2024, the Plan Commission considered the request of Continental Properties for a final development plan for a transit-oriented development in the rear 10.79 acres of the Deerbrook Shopping Center, consisting of a multifamily residential rental development with 254 units. The residential development will include 25 affordable units, which is in compliance with the village's affordable housing ordinance. Following its consideration, the Plan Commission voted 5-0 to recommend that the final development plan is in substantial conformance with the preliminary plan.
I see hiding back there is Jen Patton. Jen, you want to come here, talk to us a little bit about what's been happening and maybe some of the tweaks?
Good evening. I am Jen Patton, Development Director with Continental Properties. I'm excited to be back here tonight to present the final development plan for Lake Cook Crossing Community Development tucked behind Deerbrook. I also do have Mark Scacco here with me tonight. He is from SEMCON, our civil engineer, in case there's any engineering-related questions from the board. I'm going to pull up a presentation. I don't know how to get it on. Can you see it on your screens right now?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So I'll start with just a really brief overview of Continental and then get into more of the specifics on the project, specifically the changes since our preliminary approvals in our ARC. Continental, we're a national multifamily developer. We have communities all over the country, over 125 communities, many of which are here in the Chicagoland market. All of our projects are conventionally financed with private equity partners. We do own, operate, and manage all of our own communities, so we do not sell out to third-party management companies. Again, the site, 10.79 acres tucked behind the Deerbrook Shopping Center, along the spur and off of Waukegan and Lake Cook Road. So a little summary of the revisions from our preliminary approvals, many of which of these actually were brought up the last time I was here in front of you all, so just wanted to address those. The unit mix count, this was really more of just a clarification on plans to make sure that they were consistent, but we do have 20 studios, 110 one-bedrooms, 100 two-bedrooms, and 24 three-bedrooms, totaling 254 units. We did have some revisions to the northeast corner of the site to accommodate the cross-access agreement, along with just some utility conflicts, which I can show on the site plan. We did increase our total green space by about an acre. Our final landscape plans now incorporate the Metra pedestrian path, as well as those changes to the northeast corner. Our pedestrian circulation exhibit, per the comments from the board, now include the pace stops and the directional signage to lead residents from Lake Cook Road to Waukegan. And then we have included in our signage package the parking prohibited signage for our neighbors to the north, which would be at the north property fence and property line. And then our trash enclosure and trash compactor, typically we have those kind of connected, but we did have to separate those for a utility conflict in our engineering plans, and that's reflected on the plans as well. So site plan really hasn't changed much aside from that northeast corner. So we have 8 three-story multifamily buildings. 7 of them are 32 unit 3-story, as well as 1 30-unit. We do have our 4,300 square foot clubhouse with resort style pool. We have our main access will be off of Waukegan, secondary access from Lake Cook Road, and then we do have connection to the Metra pedestrian path. This is that circulation exhibit. Really no changes aside from the signage allocation and the PACE bus stops that we had identified, not only for the board, but also we'll probably be using something like this in our marketing packages to encourage public transit. These are the elevations of the trash enclosure and compactor. Same material, same color palette. Really all they did is just split apart in that northeast corner near the lift station. Parking breakdowns, we have a total of 399 total on-site parking stalls. We have 63 attached garages to our multifamily buildings, 28 detached garage offerings, 1 is in our ground building, 63 apron spaces at those attached garages, so totaling 399, and then including the angled stalls in the main entry drive off of Waukegan, it brings our ratio to about a 1.71, which is really in our sweet spot for Continental based on all of the data that we capture across our national portfolio to make sure that we're accommodating not only residents, but their guests and snow. Community amenities, we have our resort-style pool, 24-hour fitness center. Our clubhouse has the Click Cafe with Wi-Fi, lounge area, and then we have a demonstration-style kitchen for residents to have not only organized events through our operations staff, but also they can utilize that for their own private parties. On this site, we have 2 pet playgrounds with agility equipment. Our grounds building also has a car care center with an area where residents can wash their car and vacuum, and a pet wash station. And then we do have outdoor seating areas throughout the site. All of our ground level units are all direct entry with patios, and then our second and third floor units are semi-private with balconies. We are planning to, as stated in the staff report, we will be in compliance with your affordable housing ordinance. So 25 of those units will be allocated for affordable housing units. Interior design, as I had mentioned, ranging from studios to 3 bedrooms with the square footages to the right there. High-end finishes, hardwood style flooring. All of our units do have in-unit washer and dryer, a lot of natural light, ample closet space, and again, semi-private and private entries. The elevations have not changed since the last time I was here, and since we had our final approvals from the ARC, but a combination of board and batten and lap hardy board siding, brick veneer, cascading roof lines. So these are the clubhouse elevations. We do have 2 different color schemes for the 32-unit building. So this would be color scheme A, and then the sides. Color scheme B, and then the sides. And then our 30-unit 3-story. Ancillary structures, we do have 2 8-car detached garages, 2 6-car detached garages. We have our mail kiosk building, and then the maintenance grounds building with storage for maintenance vehicles, as well as that car care center, and then a parcel package room for where Amazon would have packages delivered to that room to keep them secure for the residents to pick up. Signage, no changes to the major signage package aside from the directional signage and then the parking prohibited signage along the north fence. And then I'll finish up with just some photorealistic renderings. These were prepared by our landscape architect, so they really did do a great job of demonstrating what some of the landscaping will look like per the final landscape plans. A lot of native plantings here. This is a bird's eye view of the clubhouse, showing the multi-use sport court for pickleball and other activities, bocce ball. We have a outdoor fire pit, and then you can kind of see the pool there in the background with the pergolas. Another view. The outdoor fire pit. A night shot with the bistro lighting. A lot of outdoor seating opportunity. Again, a lot of nice landscaping here. This is the courtyard in the northwest corner of that pod of 4 buildings. We have a nice pergola out there. We also have grills for the residents to use. The grills, we don't allow grills within the units or on the balconies, so we do have grills spread out throughout the community for them to use. And again, a lot of native plantings here. A majority of the plantings on this site are native. Outdoor amenities. And that's really it. I mean, we're really excited to partner with you all here at the Village of Deerfield and the surrounding community. We really do hope and expect that this will spur new economic development, not only to the surrounding businesses, but also really help enhance the Deerbrook Shopping Center and our neighbors. So with that, I would open it up for any questions.
I got a couple.
Sure.
So what are your rentals? How much will the 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, et cetera be?
Sure. So right now we're projecting with our closing projections as we get approaching our closing date. Studios would be $1,560 to $1,800. 1 bedrooms $1,800 to $2,235. The 2 bedrooms $2,525 to $2,900. And then the 3 bedrooms $3,250 to $3,300.
So what's that on a per square footage, you know?
I'd have to look
Okay,
exactly. Yeah.
I can do the new math. It's fine. So what's your plan? When would you want to start construction, and then how long would it take before you're completely leased out? What would your expectation be?
Sure. So we did submit our construction schedule, but our plan is to close mid-October. We usually break ground immediately after we close, and then construction starts. Typically, our clubhouse takes about 10 months. And then after the clubhouse is complete, every 3 weeks we deliver another building. So this project is expected to be complete in 2026, mid to fall 2026.
And then would you be leasing out as you complete your
Correct. Yeah, we have a lease-up schedule. It follows each of the buildings. Mm-hmm.
Great. Questions, anybody?
I have one. This is something I brought up before. I apologize because it's not very clear cut. I don't think it's Continental's problem, but the crossing from behind Deerbrook across the metro tracks to the station, which would be used by all of the commuters going back and forth, is unprotected, and it always has been. And I was very concerned about safety. I wanted to know because there are new metro schedules. It's used by freight trains that do not stop. It's used by Amtrak, which does not stop. And it's used by a number of the commuter trains now that do not stop at the Lake Hook station. And I was asking if we could assure whether it was Metra or the RTA or who it was that we could get crossing warning signals, audio and visual, not crossing gates because I think that's more unsafe than other, but with flashing lights and bells to let people know when there are trains, some of which, especially if they've gotten off of one and they have to cross behind it without knowing what's on the other side, could be catastrophic. So I don't know. I think Andrew,
Bob,
I threw that at you.
I do recall you bringing this up last time, and I believe there's already gates there.
You know, it's FRA regulations that whatever the federal exactly.
Well, I know we don't have crossing gates at the Deerfield station.
If you go
same
to
reason.
the Lake Hook station, they do have a signalized crossing.
Okay, signalizing is what I was looking for.
Right.
But
Because it's an FRA regulation.
And whatever the Fed regs are, they got to follow.
Exactly. So that is Metro's responsibility, and it is already in place. There is not an additional one that I see on here from farther down. You know, the people who will be coming from the development, you have to walk all the way up to where that crossing is.
I'm assuming that it would probably be fenced up until it breaks to cross at
So
the crossing.
if people wanted to hop across the tracks, we can't really stop them,
But if there's a
just the
fence.
way we can't at the
Bob,
Deerfield
I think Bob's
station.
asking, is there a fence that's going to keep them from doing that?
Right, exactly. And then break
Up to the
break
top.
at the crossing and then start up on the other side.
So I would ask, Bob, that you guys work with Continental just to address this, because I'm not sure I know the answer, and whatever we need to do to make sure it's safe.
Whatever's
Just,
in compliance with federal regulations,
Yes.
we got to do.
Yes.
So,
Period.
and they will do. I mean,
Just
I-
one
Period.
quick question. The Lake Cook Station's been there for a while. Did that predate or the FRA regulations? Or I don't know when Lake Cook went in.
I think the answer is whatever the feds require, we got to put in.
so
Right.
that will be
And
part
if
of the
they're, I
building.
think,
So it's, if
I
it's
think
not
they're
there
saying
now,
they're
it will
going to
be.
do that.
Okay.
That'll be part of the building permit process, but this is just a heads up
Yeah.
that whatever the regs are, you guys need to be, and we'll make sure that you need to be compliant with them.
Yeah.
And we all get why, right?
Yes, of course.
That's not hard, but
Thanks, Bob, for again bringing this up. It's important. Any other questions?
I got a question about pets.
Pets?
What about dog walking?
Okay.
We have a dog walking pet question.
Okay.
Are you guys going to have a spot for that, or is that?
For dog walking? We have
two
two
dog parks.
We have two pet parks.
Right,
Yeah,
so-
those are fenced in.
So as you think about who's going to move here, right? They're going to have dogs, and these guys are providing for that, which is a really so as we've seen over the last 5-10 years, dog walking and dog ownership is a big part of who your tenants are.
You bet.
So and they're providing for it. So
And one part of assistance is on the agenda tonight, because there will be a, for lack of a better word, a doggy daycare that we're examining tonight.
There indeed is a better word. We're going to hear about that soon.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was my point.
Well, I think it's great on such a difficult piece of property, which we've all been looking at and worrying over for years and years. It is tucked in a strange location. It is a challenging and unusual shape. The fact that this design seems to bring in so many things that future residents of Deerfield will want. And it does check a lot of boxes in terms of what we would like to see in terms of differentiating the kind of housing that we have in our community. The fact that this addresses our affordable housing requirements and has some flexibility in terms of different sizes and is ideally set up for transit-oriented movement. So I applaud you in having figured out how to make a silk purse out of an unusually challenging space.
Solitary.
Yeah, I know what the word is. She doesn't want to hear that.
Thank you.
But I think it's terrific, and I think the changes that you've made, the tiny adjustments, are absolutely appropriate and great.
Thank you.
You will, however, get requests for more pickleball courts.
I don't know if we can fit them, but
Rooftop.
maybe.
So do we have a motion to accept the report and recommendation, then have this go for an ordinance next meeting? And the recommendation would be that it is in substantial conformance with the preliminary plan for a final development plan.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
And Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very
Great.
much. Appreciate it.
We'll see you at the groundbreaking.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Item 2480, consideration and action on the Plan Commission's recommendation on a request for an approval of a special use to permit the establishment of Sky Zone at Deerbrook Shopping Center planned unit development located at 120 South Waukegan Road.
Plan Commission held a public hearing on July 25th, 2024 to consider a request for a special use for an indoor children's playground in order to redevelop the vacant 40,850 square foot retail space at 120 South Waukegan Road, previously occupied by Art Van Furniture. The petitioner, typical customer, is age 4 to 10. So typically parents will drop off and leave their child. The petitioner's plans to add a crosswalk, striping at the main access door for Sky Zone to alert motorists that pedestrians will be crossing at this location. Following its consideration, the Plan Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval. Should the board agree with the Plan Commission's recommendation, a follow-up ordinance amending a municipal code concerning arcade games will need to be considered, because what they're proposing is some arcade games which historically have been prohibited for a 1950s and 1960s societal decision. So know that should the board approve this, we're going to present that recommendation as part of that.
As part of it tonight or later?
Not tonight, later. We'll, when the ordinances come back, we'll come back with a recommendation of amended municipal code to provide for the arcade games, which is what they're recommending, or what they're suggesting.
So I see that the petitioner's here. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your project.
Yes. So, hi, my name is Ryan Bickings. I'm a project manager at architecture and engineering firm, and I am here to present the Sky Zone space. I also have with me Dominic Williams, who she is the operations management at a local Sky Zone from here, and then I have Justin Opitz, who is our Kimley Horn, who did our traffic and site analysis. Get to the top here for you guys. There we go. You guys can see what I have shown in front of me here?
Yes.
Awesome. So good news with the plan development. Hopefully they have some little ones as well to go to the Sky Zone location, which is just around the corner from Perfect from where you guys just voted on that. Sky Zone is proposing to redevelop the vacant box at 120 South Waukegan Drive, Deerfield, Illinois. Sky Zone would provide the community with healthy activities for local residents and bring customer traffic back to the retail complex. Sky Zone is a premier leader in indoor activity entertainment in the United States, owns, operates, and franchises over 270 parks. Founded in 2004 as Sky Zone Trampoline Park, the brand has evolved from being the first of its kind to now a top destination for active play, offering its 500,000 plus members in over 60 smile-inducing attractions. The brand encourages families to make memories, play every day through birthday parties, team gatherings, and after-school activities each year. Sky Zone caters to kids under 12 through programming in its clean and safe environment. Some of the proposed operations within the indoor playground and trampoline park are designed to cater to a wide range of age ranges. These include general ticket sales for 170 active jumpers. That is kind of a key number there because that's the total amount of people that they will allow within the attraction area. Once they hit that maximum number, no more children can be allowed in that area. The ticket sales, in addition to what we offer in this place, is party rooms for group events, a kitchen area to serve quick snacks and drinks, which I have the food menu here coming up next. You guys can take a look at that. Kitchen areas, a fuel zone to cook and serve limited food and non-alcoholic beverages. I did hear you guys mention the arcade games. I do have a couple slides on that just to kind of show you what we're proposing to do, because that's also part of what we're proposing to do at this location. Sky Zone does offer membership, which is a monthly fee. If there are available time slots at the time of booking, they can book it. If the place is entirely booked, then no time slots will be available, and that's done online. The bookings will be compliant with the total jumper count that is allowed at a single time. So as I just mentioned, if they have the 170 that's allowed in that time slot window, no more people can come in and join the attraction area. Generally, the approximate business from private parties to open gym play is about 50-50. The typical hours of operations may vary slightly, but most parks... Can
I ask you to do me a favor?
Yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah, of course. Most parks are open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., with the exception of Friday and Saturday nights when we are open until 11 p.m. To ensure the existing lighting in the parking lot is sufficient, because there are a lot of little kids that are accessing this area, we will provide a site photometrics for the site We'll look at the light levels and make sure that they're compliant with the village ordinance. And if they're not, then we will replace those light fixtures in the parking lot. The estimated number of people in the facility during a typical weekday is difficult to predict, but generally during the week it's pretty low. About 25 people is what you may see in the facility. On Fridays and Saturdays, it's not uncommon to hit their maximum jumper count, which is 170 jumpers. At this time, you will also see 25 to 30 employees at a peak, with a total of could be 70 to 100 hourly employees. Those hourly employees generally range from your teenagers that will come be the hourly employees, within general managers that oversee the operations on the day-to-day. Here's a breakdown for how many occupants we would be proposing to access the space. Do you guys have any general questions so far?
No, I'm curious about the parking for the employees. Were you anticipating having a special place for the employees to park?
No, they would just be parking out front
Just
with the
randomly
customers.
in the front?
Yes.
Okay.
The shopping center does have quite a bit of parking out front.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Could you clarify again for me? You said that during the week there could be up to 25 people.
Mm-hmm.
Those are members, you call them, or just patrons?
Just patrons.
Okay. So if there's, on an average, 25 people on a Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
then why do you need to stay open until 11 o'clock?
On the weekdays, they'll stay open until 9.
Okay. That's even late for 4 to 10-year-olds.
Well, it's not just 4 to 10-year-olds. You need to clarify for him.
Mary's a jumper.
No, I've been to Sky Zone.
Yeah, you need
No,
to
but
clarify
you
for
said
me.
he said that the main. So I was asking the same question: why 11 p.m.? It seems so late for a 10-year-old.
Or even 9-year-old, or even 9 o'clock for a 4 to 10-year-old.
Correct.
Something
Does it disconnect a little
it
bit?
doesn't hit me right when you have 25, 30 people, which is not a huge amount of people, and then you're open until 9 o'clock for 4 to 10-year-olds. So help me understand that better.
Which, Dominique, do you mind speaking of this? So she actually operates another park that's near here.
Terrific. Okay, good.
She maybe can give a little bit more insight on this.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dominique Williams. I currently run the Sky Zone in Orland Park, Illinois.
Thanks for coming here tonight.
Absolutely. So the hours in Orland Park is restricted to 9 to 9. There are a lot of parks that stay open Fridays and Saturdays later. We're closed at 9, 7 days a week. Your target demographic is the younger kids up to about 12. That is not the totality of the demographic. The teens are there. The attractions range from, for instance, we have a little leaper time. There could be sensory hours. There are full court basketball courts and things like that. So there is a mixture of the age group of children that come in there.
So what's the range?
Up until adults.
Right.
You can jump with your children. You can
Right.
utilize those attractions at any age.
Right.
We typically say if you can walk, you can jump. So there's foam pits and different things like that. The arcade games. A lot of parents moms meet, and they just hang out on their laptops and things like that. So it's an all ages type of establishment. It just seems to be a higher number of children that come there, or parents that bring their children there, that are between that 4 to 10 demographic.
And I know that the facility in Vernon Hills specializes in early morning for toddlers and for very young children, and they do not allow older children in at that time. And then at a certain time, 10, 11, whatever it is.
So they would be going to school.
Yeah, well, it's preschoolers.
No, the people above the preschoolers would be going to
Correct.
school anyway. So
Correct. It
Yeah.
works out for the business. But they have a facility that is very physical. All of these things are very physical attractions. So safety-wise, it's in their best interest to control, manage
No, I
who's
understand
using
that.
the equipment, at various times.
I understand that. I'm just trying to reconcile the anticipated demand during the week with the hours and with the ages that would be most prevalent using Sky Zone. I don't expect any of us are really going to be your demographic that's going to be there. I know what you said, but I just want to adjust expectations. Well, probably not a lot of this. No board retreat there. So that's what I'm trying to just figure out a little bit better and get some clarity on that.
And I will say one more thing. So you have to consider in the mornings before 4 o'clock during the school year. During the summer, that 9 to 9 or 9 to whatever time is constant flow of traffic during the summer when no one's obligated to school. School's just started for most of us. So now we have field trip bookings. We have other group events where it is youth groups, and we had the camps and things over the summer. But I probably have 15 field trips booked this week. So those field trips, and we're involved in the community.
Oh, okay.
So we get a lot of those bookings where people are rewards trips for. It could be a 4th grade PTA. They'll come and they'll book that for their children to have field trips throughout the entire school year, which we prioritize in the mornings.
High school kids like to do this at night and on the weekends.
A church group does a retreat there.
You play basketball.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm trying to figure out the demand with the hours, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and the anticipated demand during the day. I'm not making a judgment on whether it's fun or not fun. I'm trying to just understand the plan, the operations, not whether it's a fun thing to do or not. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
It's insomniac toddlers. Children who can't sleep come late at night.
And if I may, I do want to bring up the homeschool group as well, because we do have a group of homeschooled, and they allow that can be their middle of the day in between their instruction time, like a gym period for the homeschool. So as an organization, we don't lose out being open that early in the morning. It seems different sometimes. You would think people are waking up at 9, 10 in the morning and jumping up and down, but there is a lot of different events and things that happen during that time. It's very wise to be open at 9.
So you might get religious schools. You might get all of our,
And did I hear you say something about the child or the children would be left off and leave the child? Okay. Then I misheard that. So do parents normally stay there, or what is the kind of the supervision, if any, that you guys would be offering?
Typically, parents stay. The parents come and we don't charge the ticket for the parents that are not jumping. So you would like to join your kids, you bring your children in. You're required to sign a waiver as an adult for any minor. So the 18 and older adult is required. And it's really not a heartache for them because, like I said, the seating area, the snacks and the drinks, and then they are not charged a ticket, so it's not like a financial burden to just come and watch your children.
Okay. Anyone under 18 has got to be accompanied by an adult. Is that
over 18?
Yes, they have to be accompanied by the adult, and the waiver has to be filled out for those minors by an adult.
Right, okay.
How are the times booked? You said capacity 170. Are people booking online? Are they walking in, or both?
They're doing both, and the capacity is combined with all things considered. So if you purchase your tickets online or you purchase them prior to, those ticket sales are booked into the capacity, and it will stop you. It will not allow you to continue the book or us to continue to sell if we are at capacity, and that goes for membership or standard passes.
So how do you handle walk-ins when you're at capacity?
Well, as a customer service, we can do things like, hey, we have a future jump time that is maybe an hour for now. If you would like to book that online, you will be secure for your spot. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. The capacity issue, people are usually, they come there to have a good time, so they're not really unruly about having to book maybe for a later time.
So if you're at capacity, they don't enter the facility, or is there a waiting area?
They cannot enter the facility. Some ways that I've been to a lot of parks, and some of them are set up to where they're not a part of the activity area. We call it the circulation area, and maybe they can just hang out for a minute and make sure your waiver is filled out and things like that. But they're not allowed anywhere into the facility where the activities are because they have to obviously be accounted for. And our jump times stagger about every 15 minutes, so there's people coming out of the attractions every 15 minutes. So your wait time shouldn't really typically ever be too extensive if the place sells out.
Dominique, you answer questions very well. Thank you. How long have you been at Orland?
2 years.
Is that how long it's been there?
No, Orland has been open since 2016. And thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before? Were you done, or did we just kind of jump in the middle of?
We did. We just cut him off.
Yeah,
No, it's perfect.
Was there anything else you wanted to show us or explain to us, or anything else?
No, I don't have anything additional. I guess I do have the information about the arcade games if you guys would like to see that.
Any other visuals you got?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Can people go into the arcade game area without purchasing a ticket for, like, say I came by and the jump zone was full, can I go hang out and play games?
No, ma'am. Your ticket pays for all of the activities in that pass, and it's by time. An hour and a half or a membership. So you are not able to access any activity unless you have a pass to enter the building. Otherwise, the concern would be, how do we control that capacity and who's in the building?
Thank you.
Which
Walk
you can
us through what we're seeing.
Yeah, which you can see here on the floor plan. If you guys can see my mouse on the screen, that is the arcade games are located in this back corner, which is inside the facility area that she was mentioning here, which is boxed out, which is where the jumpers would be at all times, and it's fenced in. And as you can see here, there's that kind of parent waiting area that she was mentioning as well. So here's the menus that I mentioned. I really wanted to focus on the arcade games here. The total amount being proposed at this location is 17. The arcade games are kind of listed below, and I have some visuals on the following slides for what those arcade games are. The approximate square feet within the facility is 550. There's no tickets that the kids win. They just win the prizes, the stuffed animals out of the machines. It's just typical crane games that are $2 to $3 each. And the crane games pay out about 30% of the time. So the next following slides here, as I mentioned, just some of the games that you would see within the typical facility. And then, as I mentioned, here's our traffic and parking analysis.
And there was some mention in your report, I don't know if you want to go back to the visual, if my colleagues understand, the doorway that is at the northeast corner of the building. It opens out to the area of the floor tile store where the deliveries, where people are coming in and out. And so you're making a commitment to have that be an emergency exit, so there is no danger of children or anyone else stumbling in front of a
That is correct.
Truck.
That is correct. This will be our main entry and exit for the facility, with our emergency exit on this portion of the plan, as well as the rear of the space.
I thought that was a smart move.
Yes.
Any questions, comments?
No, my only concern is I wasn't worried about the morning times. I was more thinking that at 11 p.m. seems really late to have this kind of facility open. That's my only concern. And I felt that way when I was reading it, but
just as a parent, and you're bringing kids there, seeing people go there, they're going to want to get there earlier. They're going to want to be there at 9, 8:30, 9.
I agree with Jennifer.
Morning, I understand. My kids were up early, and I get needing to expend energy early. But the evening, the 9 to 11 period of time bothers me. I just don't know if it bothers anybody else about having a business like this open that late.
I'm not aware, and Kent just helped me a little bit with this, I'm not aware of any nearby businesses that are open till 11. Maybe some restaurants, but nothing like this. So I share that concern.
Do we know how long is Roots? Do we have a limit on Roots timing? I mean, they're not open after 9. I wouldn't think.
I'm thinking like the middle school and high schoolers, the bowling alley is gone, so it gives them something to do.
Right.
The movie theater, kids get out of the movies that late. You know, there's no alcohol sales, there's no cigarette sales. It's good, clean fun. It's something to do in Deerfield.
So this is what I'd like to do with you guys, with your permission. I'd like to take up the recommendation. Then when it comes back to us in 2 weeks with the ordinance, then we can talk more about hours.
The hours.
Because that seems to, and the arcade. Those seem to be the only issues which I don't want those to stop moving this forward to an ordinance, and then we can address those in 2 weeks.
I mean, McDonald's has kids sitting around eating ice cream and stuff like that.
It's true. We have very few places at night for high schoolers to go and do anything.
Okay.
So,
let's air it out in 2 weeks after we have the ordinance,
okay.
and we'll give us some time just to kind of think about this.
And I would share with my colleagues, I may be the only person at this table who has been to Sky Zone, and I have several times with my grandchildren. And it's frenetic, it's loud, it's so loud, but it's so much fun. The kids really, really enjoy it. It's healthy, it's movement, it's activity for all ages. I mean, it really is. The kids have a blast, and it's just everything's padded, and they bounce off of everything. You know, it's controlled chaos, and they do the facilities I've been in 2 different ones, are very well controlled, as I have seen. So I can attest from my experience. I know that we're talking about the arcade games next time. The only thing I ever felt negative about Sky Zone was I just was tisk. I was disappointed that the kids went to the arcade games and stopped bouncing.
Stop running and bouncing.
You know? So that's just me.
So for petitioner's benefit, I think we want to talk about the between 9 and 10 or 9 and 11.
Yep.
Why is that important to stay open? I think that's
Yep.
If we can come back with that next conversation as to why that's important to you and how that's managed, I think that's what the board's
So
asking.
the process would be, we're now going to consider a motion to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission. Come back in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, there will be an ordinance that will be, or 3, whenever that, 2 weeks from, it's going to be on Tuesday, not on Monday.
Extra month, right?
Our next meeting. And in the ordinance, there will be different provisions, which would include hours of operation. We're going to talk about that more fully at that time, but I want this process to move forward. To get to that point, I don't want that to bog us down to take the next step for the drafting of an ordinance. Okay?
And it might be helpful if you could give us a few statistics on your other facilities, what the population is, say, from 9 to 11, what kind of numbers you're seeing, what we might expect to see.
Right. So
I
you know
think
that
that'd be
there's
nice.
some concern about it. Between now and 2 weeks, send something in, make your case.
Will do.
Okay?
Yep.
So any other questions or comments? All right. With that, I will take a motion to consider the Plan Commission's recommendation on a request for the special use of Sky Zone at 120 South Waukegan Road and for the drafting of an ordinance to be ready at our next meeting.
Move approval.
Second?
Roll call.
Trustee Goldstone?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2481, consideration and action on the Plan Commission's recommendation on the request for special use to permit an establishment of an animal pet resort at 649 Lake Hook Road in Deerfield Depot Plan Unit Development. This is the former El Tradicional site.
Plan Commission held a public hearing on July 25th, 2024 to consider the request to establish an overnight dog boarding and dog daycare facility called K9 Animal Resort in the former El Tradicional building at 649 Lake Cook Road. Business will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on weekends. The subject property has a total of 66 parking spaces, and the parking lot will remain in its current configuration. The number of dogs in the resort will not exceed 95 at maximum capacity. The petitioners propose to retrofit the building to meet K9 Resort franchise. I'm sorry, I'm going to laugh at this. I'm going to tell you why in a second. At maximum capacity. They will be installing grass turf and 2,300 square foot fenced area outside the play area, sound reducing 8-foot tall fencing at the east side of the building with the outdoor play yard, and making aesthetic changes to the facade. The Plan Commission at their public hearing voted 6-0 to recommend approval. And I just want to tell the board, having a similar request in Lake Bluff, the motion was made by David Barkhausen to approve this request.
Nice.
Sorry. Didn't mean to distract everybody.
I see the petitioners here. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your proposal.
Sure. So my name is Zach Nisbet. I'm a co-founder of Windy City Dog Resorts, LLC, a franchisee of Canine Resorts Luxury Pet Hotels. So I've prepared a presentation to talk about 3 things today. First is, who is Windy City Dog Resorts? Second is, what are the specifics of the Deerfield project? And the third, what is the brand history? And what are the details of Canine Resorts itself? So talking about our organization, I have 3 investing partners who all have extensive experience in entrepreneurship, banking, and franchising, and I'll be the guy who's opening and operating 8 resorts throughout the greater Chicago area. So here is our suggested territory. This is a screenshot from our MUOA multi-unit operator agreement with Canine Resorts. These are just suggestions. As you'll see, Deerfield's actually outside of one of these suggested territories, but we do have the flexibility to go outside of these blue circles and in between them.
Do you have facilities at any of those locations?
No, actually Deerfield would be the first.
Okay.
So second thing I wanted to talk about, the specifics of the Deerfield project. So as you mentioned, this is a former restaurant, El Tradicional, in the Deerfield Depot. As you can see, an aerial here. And here's an aerial of the shopping center itself. One of the reasons this location was so attractive to us was from a demographics perspective. With all the multi-billion-dollar organizations in Deerfield, we thought the daytime working population would be pretty high and would attract a lot of daycare visitation. Also, being right next to the train station there is really good for us. So here's a sketch plan from our architects. So with the 6,572 rentable square feet, we were able to fit in 76 total overnight accommodations, which yield a total daily capacity of 95 dogs per day. Something I'm going to talk about later in this presentation is seasonality. One of the things I'll mention now, there's going to be very few days where we'll approach 95 dogs a day. If we achieve the performance of other resorts, within 3 to 4 years, we should be stabilizing around 50% occupancy. So I think we'll be closer to 50 dogs a day. Talking about the exterior of the space, there are 66 parking spots outside this building within our parcel. And with our 2,300 square foot area directly to the east, we'll be fitting in 3 daycare areas, one for private play dogs, one for small dogs, and one for large dogs. So now the third thing I wanted to talk about, Canine Resorts itself. So this is a national franchise offering dog boarding and dog daycare. It was founded in 2005. It started franchising in 2011. Today, there are 34 resorts open nationally, and there are over 150 in development. So Canine Resorts specializes in offering top-of-the-line care. So our purpose is to provide a home away from home for dogs. So when customers go on vacation, they drop their dogs off at our facility. They know their dog is in good hands. We make it look great from a service offering perspective. So we offer.
Excuse us in advance for the chuckles. It's new to us.
Sure.
All right.
I get them every
We're
time.
not being offensive. This is kind of a new
We're
thing.
enjoying.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear. So we offer boarding and daycare. From a boarding perspective, this is our top-of-the-line accommodation. This is luxury boarding. This is an 8-foot by 8-foot room.
I know.
With a couch, a chandelier, and a TV, all for your dog.
You hand me a chandelier.
Have to have the chandelier. And you'll see here the luxury hallway on the right, more chandeliers. On the left, you'll see the executive room as well. This is definitely our most popular accommodation option, which is a 5-foot by 7-foot room. And the executive room and the luxury suite can fit multiple dogs just because of how big they are. And then we also have a compartment, as you'll see in the top left, which we recommend for dogs that are crate trained. So another service we offer is daycare. Daycare is all-inclusive for dogs boarding overnight. It's included free of charge, but you also can come just for the sake of daycare. Now, I already kind of mentioned this when talking about the sketch plan, but there's two different daycares we offer. There's small dog daycare and large dog daycare, and that threshold is separated by 30-pound dogs. And before we introduce any dog to daycare, any new dog, we do something called an evaluation, where we'll bring all the dogs outside and we'll introduce a new dog into the interior, and one by one introduce dogs to the new dog to see how they react. And once they're a part of the pack, we'll monitor them with special supervision for about 6 hours just to make sure they do well with other dogs. If they pass, then they're a good fit for daycare going forward. If they don't, that's okay. I think about 1 in 5 dogs that come in the facility don't do well in daycare environments. So what we offer is personal play times. So we have a separate yard dedicated just to dogs that don't do too well in social environments and just prefer the one-on-one play times. So what we're planning to do at this resort is hire one person dedicated to personal play times, where they're going to give them belly rubs, they're going to play fetch, they're going to play tug of war, all those good things. We're going to bring out the personal playtime dogs a minimum of 4 times a day for 10 to 20 minutes at a time, so they're still getting their exercise and sunlight. Another thing we offer is bathing. So for any dog that is boarding at our facility 2 nights at a minimum or greater, it's mandatory that they get a bath. It's also an additional add-on that existing customers can go for. And to talk a little bit about the operations here, we have all sorts of things in place to make sure it's a safe facility, like camera and video surveillance, security systems, fire suppression systems, and we require some pretty standard vaccination requirements. I remember the acronym BIRD: Bordetella, influenza, rabies, and distemper. And to talk a little bit more about the customer experience, we try to maintain certain service times. So daycare drop-off should be no more than 30 seconds, and a boarding check-in should be also less than 3 minutes. And these are the hours of operations. So on weekdays, we'll be open to the public from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're going to have employees there at least an hour in advance and an hour afterwards to do all sorts of cleaning, get us ready for the day and to close for the day. And on the weekends, our hours are a little more limited. We'll be open to the public from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. with employees still arriving early and staying late to make sure everything's getting done. And just to talk a little bit more about seasonality, like I just mentioned, we really only have 2 peak seasons, which is the summer, and it's also right around Thanksgiving and Christmas. Right now, being at the end of August, we are entering what we call a transition period, where we're going from a peak season to an off-peak season. And the last thing is going to be the sorts of deliveries we get here. They typically take place on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, most frequently for dog food. So if you guys have any questions about the operations of a canine resort or our franchisee group, please let me know.
I had a question. now. How do you clean the turf? Because I was thinking the dogs are going to, how do you keep it clean?
Sure. Yeah, so we have a special Forever Lawn vendor that we work with. This is a brand requirement. So there's essentially gravel on top, and then there's going to be a synthetic turf on top of that. And so we essentially have the regular bags that everyone else has. We're going to double and triple bag those before putting them in trash themselves. And then we also just hose them down. We also have this very special cleaning agent called Rescue, which does a really good job at eliminating bacteria.
Okay. I was curious about that, and I was also curious about the drainage because I was reading about turf online and that can be an issue.
Yeah, we don't foresee it as an issue at this location.
And can you talk a little bit about where you will be storing those double and triple bags of waste?
Sure. So just pulling up the site plan, it's directly to the south. Let's see here. I think it's somewhere in this general area, but that's where the dumpsters are.
And how frequent will they be picked up?
I think it's every other day.
And more if needed, I would guess. I mean, right? If you get more dogs and you need more pickup, you...
Correct. Yeah, so it depends on the season. You know, if it's off-peak, maybe we decrease the frequency of the pickups.
And, the play yard is in the area of the restaurant that used to be a patio area.
Yep.
And the railroad tracks, go along, and then it's right by the station. Will that disturb the dogs, the sounds of the trains going by? Is that going to set off an alarm for you guys every time the train goes by?
No, we actually see it as a positive, kind of being in a shopping center, that the sound of the trains will sort of offset or mask the dog barkings. But from the dog perspective, to your point, that 8-foot fence that we have, the vendor is Buff Tech. What they tell me is that it absorbs 98% of sound waves. And having personally worked in 3 different canine resorts, I can personally attest to the fact that when you're within the daycare, you actually feel pretty isolated from the rest of the world. It does a good job at blocking out noise.
So they're not going to panic and freak out when the train goes by?
No,
Great.
I haven't seen that before.
And I would assume your daycare clientele, they're regulars then? A whole lot of these animals will be coming every day?
Yeah, I see 3 to 5 days a week typically.
Thank you.
Other than the hour before, the hour after, do you have staff 24/7?
Nope. No, we leave the facility alone for about 12 hours every night.
But you have the video and audio monitoring?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've never had an instant where a dog will get out of their accommodation. We have very sophisticated mechanisms in place to make sure the dogs aren't going to be able to break down a door or anything like that and get loose in the facility. And to your point, we do have the constant supervision. We have a manager on call always in the event that an alarm goes off for fire or for whatever reason. So we will be notified about anything going wrong in the facility overnight.
If you're at capacity, would you consider having someone stay over? I know some of the other places do that.
No, we don't do that. Part of the reason is it actually disturbs the dogs. Dogs have very good hearing. So if you're on a different part of the facility, let's say I'm just in the lobby in my manager's office, if I'm making any sort of noise, dogs are going to hear it and they're going to start barking. They're going to try to get my attention. One dog barks, all the other dogs are going to bark. It's better if we just leave the facility vacant. We play some classical music at a pretty low decibel, and so it serves as a relaxing environment for them.
I got a couple questions too. First of all, I assume anything less than this would be roughing it. Okay.
Yes.
With your staff, how many people are you going to have employed?
23 when we open. And we have 2 different positions, just to talk a little bit about that.
So you're going to have 23 staff for up to 50 dogs, or 50 dogs-ish?
Yes. And we have 2 different positions, a CSR and a PCT. A CSR, customer service representative. They specialize in using the POS system and interacting with customers to make reservations. They also work in the lobby, so anytime a dog gets dropped off, as a CSR, I would take the leash for the dog. I'd run him back to daycare. I would check him in the system. Anytime someone comes to pick up their dog, I would check them out in the system, take payment, and I would go get the dog. As a PCT, a pet care technician, they specialize in working more closely with the dogs. So they'll be in daycare, overseeing doggy daycare, make sure nothing goes wrong, putting dogs in timeout when they're misbehaving, or doing those personal play times that I talked about before.
Are you going to offer any other services like grooming and bathing just overnight in daycare?
Exactly. Yeah, the tagline is we offer just what dogs like, nothing that they don't, so nothing that stresses them out. And something that you'll see when we open here is if you watch the outdoor area, you'll see the dogs fighting their owners to get in every single time. It's not like when the dogs realize they're about to go to the vet and they start fighting their dogs to go the other way. I mean, dogs are excited to enter here.
What about sales of stuff, food or toys? Nothing?
No retail. We do offer a sample pack for people that tour the facility to try our in-house food, Blue Buffalo GI, which is all-inclusive within the boarding stay. So that's another differentiator. When you pay X dollars a night to stay with us, daycare is included free, and so is food.
Is the outdoor area secured, or are there any gates?
Well, there is that 8-foot fence that I talked about. I do believe there is one exit point right here. In the event that a staff member does need to exit the daycare area and can't go through the building itself, there is that is there.
But there's no entry that way?
I'm sure you could enter from the exterior as well. I think that could be done.
I think your neighbor is McAllister's.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you heard from them one way or the other about this application?
I have not.
And staff, have we heard from any of the neighbors on this petition? Your Honor, the only other question I would have is what happens in the event like we had with the parking lot when they had the water main break underneath the parking lot?
Ooh.
They had to send every dog out? What's your contingency plan when you have to evacuate?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I heard about this happening in New Jersey earlier this summer. And the first thing that you have to do is you have to get all the dogs outside into the outdoor daycare area. And then you have to find, luckily in New Jersey, this is where the organization is headquartered. So there were many of them within close proximity. So they did have to relocate those dogs to another canine resort nearby. Now, with us in Illinois, we don't have another canine resort close by yet. Closest one's in Brookfield, Wisconsin. So our emergency protocol is going to be a little different, and that's something that we're going to have to establish before we open.
Yeah, so the network's important, right? And that's the piece of that.
Yeah.
Stuff happens, right?
So
Yes.
we would encourage you to kind of think that through.
Sure.
Maybe by the time you come back again for the approval of the ordinance.
Okay, will do.
Any other questions? Questions? Bob, anything?
Nope.
All right. So I will now look for a motion to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission for the special use of the Animal Pet Resort at 649 Lake Hook Road and to direct the attorney to draft an ordinance.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Next item on our agenda is item 2479, a report and recommendation of staff regarding administrative hearings. Justin.
Thank you, Mayor. Administrative adjudication involves resolving certain disputes or violations of the municipal code through an administrative rather than a judicial process. This means a designated hearing officer within the community, instead of a court of law, will conduct the proceedings. Municipal code violations that could be brought to these hearings include working without a permit, stop work order violations, tall grass and weed violations, illegal dumping, sump pump discharges, parking tickets, curfew violations. There are literally hundreds of these violations that could be brought to the administrative hearings. Since this is an administrative and not a judicial court, verdicts do not go on the defendant's record. This is particularly beneficial for young adults who will not be negatively impacted by the repercussions of going through the circuit court system. In addition, cases that may not be accepted by the county circuit court could be sent to adjudication, and that list is ever growing. Currently, the village does not have an administrative adjudication process, which results in all offenses, including minor municipal code violations, being directed to Lake County or Cook County Circuit Court, since there is no other process that staff can use to reach compliance. As the board knows, going to court can be expensive and extremely time-consuming and can take months or even years. Therefore, staff recommends the creation of local administrative adjudication hearings for the village. Communities with adjudication include Lake Forest, Highland Park, Northbrook, Lincolnshire, Vernon Hills, Buffalo Grove, scores of other communities. I would say the majority of communities in this area have administrative adjudication at this point. I really want the board to think of adjudication as the missing puzzle piece that staff need to reach compliance. It bridges the gap between the initial violation and compliance, allowing for an open dialogue between staff and violators. Right now, if there is an illegal sump pump discharge where they are pumping, their stormwater goes right into the sidewalk, it freezes over, someone slips on it. We send them a 30-day notice. They ignore that. We send them another 30-day notice. They ignore that. We send them a threatening 15-day notice. They ignore that. We fine them. And 6 to 8 months later, we are now in executive session working with village attorney and the board to potentially, take them to court. And now it's a year later, and we still have the exact same issue. So again, it's a very long, drawn-out process, and the best way to speed up this process is through administrative adjudication. Now we send you one notice, you ignore it, it's administrative adjudication. This wouldn't be the first step, it would be the second step, which really avoids then taking residents or violators or contractors or business owners directly to court if we can avoid that process. The police department, public works, community development would all refer cases to adjudication. Hearings would be held in Village Hall once a month here in the village boardroom, and the first plan hearing is tentatively scheduled for November. An RFQ for a hearing officer was released on August 8th and closes on August 30th. There are a large number of great adjudicators and hearing officers in this area because of the number of municipalities that have courts. And we also are in process of implementing the Tyler Technology software, which was approved by the Village Board in March of this year. The draft ordinance is attached for reference only. If this report is accepted, staff would bring the ordinance to approval at the very next meeting. I know it's quite a bit of information. I mean, this is creating a new administrative court system here at the Village, which is something we haven't done. It's certainly a big change for contractors and residents, but it's certainly something that staff are recommending.
I have a question. Sure. Ready for questions?
Yeah.
How come you're going to rotate the days when you're going to hold it? Wouldn't it make more sense to have the same day?
Sure. So it may end up still being the same day. The reason for the rotation is you work every Wednesday at 8 a.m. But whereas maybe it's easier to take a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Friday off, by rotating the days, if you can't make court this month, you may be able to make it next month. But a lot of that's working with the hearing officers and our prosecutors to determine a time that is mutually beneficial for both groups. If that makes sense.
And that's based on the experience of other
The experience of
right?
many other courts have rotating days also.
So it'd be like at my choice when I wanted?
Not necessarily, but again,
I mean, it
by
seems like it's getting more
offering
complicated.
different days, there isn't necessarily an excuse. You can't make Tuesday at 8,
Okay.
but next month you may be able to make Tuesday or Wednesday at 10, something along those lines. That's why rotating the days just makes it a little bit easier for groups to use. However, once we determine with the prosecutors and with the hearing officers, it may end up being a set date, but I won't know that for a few more weeks.
The circuit court works on a key system rather than every Monday or every other Monday. There's one day per month that it's set, and it's roughly 30 days. So a lot of times for the prosecutors and hearing officers, it works best to intertwine that with the court key system so the prosecutor and the hearing officer wouldn't have circuit court conflicts.
I had two questions. The first, if you could clarify for me how this works with our existing staff, bringing in the administrative hearing officer, how that fits in,
with what we do.
right, with what we already do. And my second question is, having read all the material, I don't really see, is there an appeal process for this? If there's a finding that somebody needs to pay a fine of whatever, what is the person's ability to appeal?
Sure.
How does that work?
Sure. So I'll answer the first question, and I'll defer the second question
Okay.
to Ben for the appeal process.
Okay.
So again, this will be a significant change for staff for what
Yeah.
we're doing right now. Again, property maintenance items and things like that, even tall grass notices that may be getting ignored and we're mowing their lawn, again, the second step would be to bring it to adjudication. So this would be completely run by staff. We'd be working with Danny, the deputy village clerk. Jessica and myself would be essentially operating the court. We'd be working with the police department, hand in hand with them too, having a CSO who's in the room or a police officer who's in the room acting as the bailiff. But again, we would be having court here at Village Hall.
So right now there's a prosecutor.
Yes,
that
and we'd be using the
prosecutes
village
our
prosecutor.
cases.
Yes.
And that is the Whiners.
Whiners, yes.
Right? They would be the prosecutor.
Yes.
They would continue to do their job. But instead of going to field court out in Park City or Waukegan, it'd be right here.
Exactly.
And instead of having the inspector or the police officer go out to Park City or Waukegan, it'd be right here.
Exactly.
No, I was just looking to clarify more that this system is going to be operable by our existing staff. We're not going to need to add more people to run this.
No additional staff.
And all these things that are already coming up will just be funneled to an internal place where we can deal with it. I mean, that's how I'm understanding it.
And it's also beneficial because staff is here in the building. And so when a matter comes up, instead of Justin having to run up to Waukegan and losing half a day, you have a lot of staff who's here. So when that case is up that they're involved with, they can easily just come upstairs and be ready to testify or do what they need to do.
And everybody who is here, all of our current staff will know to go to you, to go to Jessica, whoever, with the issue, so no balls get dropped. All of this gets covered.
Exactly. We'll have the docket set a few weeks before the actual court date. We'll be in cooperation with the Police Department, Public Works, CD, to make sure everyone knows what cases are coming. Yeah, because we'd be prepared and then ready to do a presentation exactly right here to the hearing officer.
No, my concern is that, number one, we cover all the issues that we need to cover, and that we can do it with our current staff.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, I think there might be some growing pains because it's a new thing, and there might be some glitches, but among the benefits will be efficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be like an online presence for what's happening so residents can check in to see? We have that in St. Petersburg. If you're a resident, you go to the website and you could see what
The status of your petition.
Where your case is, what's happening, your action, your fees, any comments, when your code violation is coming up, and anybody can follow it and click on it and see what's happening.
Does Tyler offer that?
So Tyler does offer a type of product like that. For some confidentiality reasons, we didn't intend to do that for exactly what you said, where anyone can log in and kind of see some of that information depending upon what it is. So we were not going to roll that out. If that's something the village board would like us to, that's absolutely something we could look into. But at this point, it would be, you can pay online, you can, there's some information you can log into, but otherwise you'd have to, essentially call me and I can give you that information, or records, or, the front desk for finance. But that is something we could do.
I mean, I think it's a great idea, but my thought is, let's start with level 1 and see how that goes. And after a period of time, if we want, we go to level 2. I'd like to just kind of get the rollout, maybe the first couple of years addressed, and see how it goes.
And then look to improve. I mean, that's the point, right? Because there's no need to be non-transparent in this. We want that too.
Yeah, but still, there are confidentiality issues.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I know I didn't want to skip Mary's question.
Just because I'm a little strange, I tend to look at the legals in the papers when they come out, and I notice we have been advertising for a possible hearing officer for about the past week or two. So we're already involved in looking for them. Is that correct?
Well, to the extent the board does not approve this, we're not going to go forward with that.
No,
Yes, we'll just cut that baby short.
But I was just wondering on the timing of this, because were we not leading or following here? It makes sense to me anyway.
It's more about lead time, I guess, to get somebody qualified. But
yeah,
well, if the thought was we want to get going by the end of the year, it will take us some time to talk to folks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interview them, go through the RFQs, the response to RFQs, interviews, and that just takes time.
Have we had responses yet?
No, so those are due August 30th. And again, I do apologize. Okay. We did get a little ahead with the RFQ process. Okay. The reason for that is the Tyler Technology product, as part of the software implementation, we were told we could have it finished by November of this year or Q2 of 2025. Those were the two options for the scheduling. So that's why we picked the earlier process instead of the later one. So because of that, we did have to push everything forward a few months.
And I think maybe I'd like to ask Ben a question or two about due process. And Mary, I think that's the heart of
the appeal, right?
What does that due process look like in terms of an appeal, or in terms of information about cases that are ongoing?
Yeah, so from a due process perspective, it operates very much just like a court. So the person who is cited has an ability to present witnesses. They have an opportunity to present their case in many ways the exact same way or similar fashion they would in court. If they don't like the result, they have a right to appeal, and it's appealed to the court.
Circuit court.
The circuit court. So not our own, but then it goes to the circuit court. It's just subject to administrative review. So it's a different legal standard than oftentimes than what would happen on an initial case that is currently going to court. So currently, when we cite somebody, we go. The burden of proof is on us to show that there was a violation of the code, and you conduct your trial or mini trial up at the court level. The difference is that if we have a process here, there's deference given for factual findings that are made in this room in the administrative hearing. So there's a separate process for appealing it. We get deference on that decision, and then it goes through the appeal process. It's also important, and I think it's to note, that if somebody blows off the process and doesn't show up, consistently, and we would give them an opportunity. Oftentimes if they miss that first date, we'll call it again at the next hearing. But if somebody just doesn't take it seriously and says, I'm not going to comply, that we can issue a decision, and if they don't appeal that, and they didn't get notice, they would be able to appeal if they didn't get notice or something. But a decision, if they don't show up, they can't then 6 months later say, well, that I really was in compliance. They're going to lose their options because this is the process. And it makes it a lot more efficient to be able to get compliance. So there's a whole system. And again, most communities around here are doing this because they see the benefits for the residents. They see the benefits for the administration of staff in the town. And most importantly, I will say, and this gets to due process kind of in this sense, is that the best part of the program is really not the eventual decision. It is forcing somebody in here to have that dialogue. So if they don't take that first letter seriously, you're out of compliance on a building code violation or noise issues or whatever it's going to be, when they're forced to come here and stand before the administrative judge, it allows our prosecutor to talk to them and say, let's go in the other room and let's see if we can resolve this. Mm-hmm. And then we know if they're willing to resolve it, and we can always come back if there's a problem. But oftentimes it doesn't necessarily take getting to that eventual decision because we're able to work it out. Mm-hmm. And it saves a lot of effort and time. And people, I've had people who, in my years that I've seen that are unhappy because of the decision, but not people who are generally unhappy with the process.
Yeah. And so, Ben, to the extent that people go through that process, that establishes an administrative record. Mm-hmm. If it's appealed, that's factual for the judge. So if somebody were to appeal that to circuit court, all those findings are then taken as findings.
That's part of the record.
Part of the record.
Not so. Right. A person can't say, "I need another 6 months to figure this out."
Right. And so we put on the case here. The witnesses speak, and then if they want to appeal it and go to court, it's not as if they get a whole new trial where they're going to parade in all the witnesses again. The judge is looking at it as almost as an appellate court, and they're looking at it, with that light. So. But there are due process rights that are afforded to everybody. Okay. And that's part of the system. And we don't direct, while we have a hearing officer that we pick but they are independent in the sense of we are not telling them you must find guilty for a person or something like that at all. They're an independent hearing officer who makes decisions based on the evidence presented to them.
And that person is appointed by me, not the board. This is not a political appointment, if you will. Uh-huh. It's a professional appointment. So part of that's that whole process of trying to separate, it is, what that is.
Okay.
Just a word or two. We've been working on this, looking at this for a year?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ish. And staff has done a tremendous job bringing this forward in looking into this and talking to Tyler and going to different communities, Northbrook, for example, and you really have done a great job. But I also want to thank Larry Berg, who has really spearheaded this, because this is what you do, so much of what you do, and you've been very instrumental in giving us ideas and suggestions on how to make this a success. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. I'd like to add there are other intangible benefits by this process. I know when I do this with a nearby community, there's a police call and a code enforcement call. With the police call, there's a lot of underage drinking and trespass and mischief, by teenagers, and by having the opportunity for the prosecutor, the police social worker, to go in a conference room with the parent one-on-one, there are just such great benefits to the community.
You're solving the problem.
You're solving a problem, and there are times when the parent wants to speak to the social worker when they're done and ask for recommendations to help their child. Mm-hmm. So those benefits can't be counted. Can be counted.
I have a question. Are any of these are these open to the public? These proceedings?
Yes, these are public meetings.
They're public meetings. Okay. And do we ever offer it at night, or is it always during the business day?
Generally speaking, it's during business hours.
Okay.
Because they require staff presence.
Yeah, it requires staff and a large number of staff and police.
Again, one of the resistance points to this has been the impetus to get people to comply because they have to go to circuit court. So the impetus, one of the arguments against this is there's a threshold. If you have to go to circuit court, you got to get your stuff together, right? You got to get an attorney or you got to get whatever. And this provides an alternative to that. But I would also say it's important that you're trying to, as Larry was talking, you want to solve the problem for the people involved. That's the heart of it. You're not trying to make it convenient. You don't want it to be, you're skipping class, right, to do a thing, but you're also being held accountable. And I think that's the balance that you're trying to strike. And Larry could talk about this in cases he's dealt with. That's the goal.
Right.
The goal is to solve what you're trying to figure out,
Right.
but not make it easy for people. I mean, not make it a less resistant path. I'm trying to describe that in a way that's a little sensitive. But you don't want to make it easy for people, but you also don't want to make it hard because you want to solve the problem.
Right.
And that's the intention behind it.
Right.
To make it more productive.
And stop bad behavior, whatever
Right.
that is.
Right.
This is an important and new and big thing for us, so I'm glad we're talking about it. Are there any other questions? No? Again, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
All right, so I would ask for a motion to approve the report, and then we would come back for approval of an ordinance.
And so move.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
We have nothing on the consent agenda. The next three items are all together with regards to the same project. And the first item of business for that project is to open up a public hearing to consider the request of Deerfield Sliff Limited Partnership for an amendment to a plan development and final development plan, an amendment for special use for an assisted living facility, an amendment to ordinance 2022-02240 called an ordinance approving an amendment to a special use permit for an industrial planned unit development, an amendment to a final development plan, a special use for assisted living facility in zoning exceptions, and any other relief necessary for the property commonly known as 1101 and 1121 Lake Cook Road, which is part of the Deerfield Business Center Planned Unit Development. So the first thing we need to do is I'm going to ask for a motion to open up the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved. We are now into public hearing. And Andrew, you want to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Notice of tonight's public hearing was published in the Deerfield Review on August 1st. We have also received proof of mailing from the applicant. The board will recall that on November 21st of 2022, they approved Heritage Woods Supportive Living Facility. That was 02240. It amended the Deerfield Office Center PUD, granted the special use approval for the Heritage Woods Assisted Living Facility with the necessary exceptions. Following that approval, the petitioner did not commence construction. The ownership has created a new development partnership, and they are seeking approval of an ordinance that would amend, restate, and replace that original 02240 ordinance. That would allow them to demolish the existing office buildings, redevelop the property into a 4-story supportive living facility for residents ages 65 and over with 147 affordable units. Staff conducted an analysis of the current proposal and compared that to the Heritage Woods proposal that was previously approved. We find that it's consistent with that ordinance 02240, and that if that proposal, it would have satisfied, the current proposal would have satisfied what's known as a minor amendment in our zoning ordinance for a PUD. So what I'd like to do is review staff's analysis to just demonstrate that it's a minor amendment, and then I'll have the petitioner summarize their proposal for the project. Section 12.11 of the Deerfield zoning ordinances sets the standards for what a minor amendment is. So here what we're seeing is in the first column we have the minor amendment standard. The second column will show what was proposed, or I should say what was approved by Heritage Woods. The third column shows what's being proposed right now by the new partnership, and then the final column is our analysis. So the minor amendment standard, the first one, it asks the question is if the land use has changed. And there is no change for row A here. For row B, we're asking the question of the boundaries of the PUD changed. And again, there's no change. For here, row C, the question is being asked if there's an increase in the number of dwelling units in excess of lesser of 3 units or 5%, and we actually have a reduction in units being proposed from 150 units to 147 units. Next, is there an increase by more than 1% of the floor area or building square footage, and there's actually a reduction in the building square footage, building area? And is there an increase in the size of the approved building pad, and there's, again, a reduction in the building pad? Moving on, there's a question for the minor amendment standard. Is there a substantial increase in traffic volume or traffic circulation? And we find that there's no increase expected for traffic impacts. Row G asks if there's a reduction of more than 1% in the approved common open space, and we find that there's no reduction in common open space being proposed. The next question is if there's a reduction in the number of off-street parking or loading spaces, and there, once again, is no reduction in off-street parking. And moving on, is there a change in the opinion of the Public Works, Director of Public Works and Engineering, which would constitute a significant modification to provision of public utilities? And here, the only modifications that are being proposed, we think, would better improve the public utilities. Actually, we're quite pleased with the changes here and the applicant's cooperation with us and their engineers' cooperation with our engineering division. Then we have a question about signage. Any replacement of a sign or expansion to a sign, is it more than 10% in gross surface area? And here they are proposing a slight increase, but it's a 4.7% increase in size, so that meets the standard. And then I think this is the final one, asking if there is change in any of the variations, modifications, or exceptions that were granted to the previous petitioner from the zoning ordinance. And the only change here is the lower building height is being proposed. And so if there's any questions on the standards and the staff analysis, I'd be happy to answer those questions. Otherwise, I will ask that the petitioner summarize their project of supportive living facility and the amenities that will be going along with that. Following the petitioner's summary of their project, and after we ask for public comment and the trustees' comment and we close the public hearing, then the next items will be to approve the ordinance amending and restating the ordinance for a final PUD approval and a final development plan. And then immediately following that would be the resolution that would be approving the development agreement for this project. And with that, I'll turn it over to the petitioner.
Good evening. For the record, Lawrence Friedman. I'm the attorney for petitioner. I'd like to introduce one of the principals petitioner, Aaron Wiesner, who's going to summarize the proposal for you. Aaron?
Good evening, Board of Trustees. So thank you. We've been excited about this meeting for a long time and appreciate the cooperation, coordination with staff to make sure that we stayed between the line. I also want to call attention that our team from Assemble Design, a locally based architecture firm that we've worked with in the past and really worked really carefully and thoughtfully through the process to keep us to be at this position today. So Deerfield Supportive Living is a development that we've modeled after two other developments that we've done. Supportive living facilities are a program that the state of Illinois offers through healthcare and family services. They're Medicaid waiver supported developments that allow for 24-hour nursing care, 3 meals a day, general lifestyle care activities. It really functions as a assisted living, independent assisted living development The added element of this is that we're financing a substantial portion of it using low-income housing tax credits, which provide just under 50% of the capital that we need to develop this property. We completed a property similar to this that is 100 units in Maywood in the western suburbs. Several people here have seen it. Won a Preservation Illinois award. That was an adaptive reuse of an older retirement home, but we've built new developments as well. This is a property that we are working on with a management company based just here nearby in Lincolnwood, Vantage Senior Care, really high degree quality service provision for seniors. We are a affordable housing developer. We own, manage, and contract manage all of our properties. The program that we work with mandates at least a 15-year ownership period for any of these developments that we do. So we expect to be long-term stewards of this property, likely even longer beyond that. And anyway, really excited to be bringing this development here to the community.
We have other representatives here to answer any questions the board may have.
Sorry, Larry. We were with.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
He wants to know if we have questions.
One of the things that was complicating this matter was the fact that it was a license from the state, and that license had to be transferred. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and thank you, Mayor, for your engagement in that process when that was going on. So the previous development team, by right, was able to take that license that had been assigned by. It's actually license is a term of art that's used. They're actually referred to as approved applications for supportive living that the Department of HFS grants. Mm-hmm. They are a finite amount of those. They haven't put out new approved applications for about 10 years. But in special circumstances, they have the ability to do this. The special circumstance they generally use that for is when there is support for a facility and either against the desire of the local community or without their engagement in the process, that application is moved away. You can submit an application for a new license to be issued. So in the summer of 2023, when we were notified that the approved application was being requested to be moved to a different location, we submitted an application with the support of the village, which we again greatly appreciated. And in the fall of 2023, we were told that we had an approved application. So we currently have an approved application for up to 150 beds. So that's why you'll see our site plan is just under that, but we have a few one-bedrooms where in theory more than one resident, there's a couple could share a bedroom, but we have up to 150 beds approved for the site.
We were happy to get involved, but I do want to acknowledge the help and give a special thanks to Bob Morgan and Julie Morse,
yes,
who are instrumental in helping what I call transfer the license,
yeah,
and maybe have some other fancy words in order for you guys to have that application approved from prior ownership for this site.
That's right.
They were very, very helpful, and I want to extend a thanks to them for implementing that.
I'd also say it was Speaker Chris Welch was also the third part of that, for sure.
What does your schedule look like in terms of construction, build-out, occupancy, et cetera?
So our hope is that we're well down the road. We have committed investor for our tax credits. We have a permanent lender that's well down their process, targeting a November closing. And our intention is generally to start construction within about a week of closing on our financing. We're hoping that we will be able to do that sometime in mid-November to start construction. We have a roughly 15-month construction period that would bring us into late 2025, early 2026. And then for the absorption of units for a property like this, it's slow because you have to go, you're moving people generally into a property like this out of a permanent home. You have to get residents pre-approved for this Medicaid waiver program. So it's we'll probably have about an 18-month lease-up period for this property before it's fully occupied.
We've used the term affordable. Can you put some numbers to that, what that means to a typical resident, whether it's a one-bedroom or two-bedroom?
Sure. So all of our units will be restricted at or below 80% of the area median income. I can, and I'm sorry I don't have the number right in front of me right now, but that is up 80% would be approximately, what's that?
Of the AMI?
Of the area median income, but in terms of what that means from an income perspective, it's approximately $75,000 in annual income. So somebody who's on a fixed income, Social Security, pensions, it often can apply for them. The majority of our units are going to be set at or below 60% of the area median income. That is where the state mandates that the average of the overall property needs to be at or below 60%. So we'll have a blend of units with limits from 40% to 80% of the area median income within the property.
That's great. What's the average age of a resident?
So every community is different. I would say our Maywood property, we just actually went through a process of determining this for each of those. So we have a property that's in the city of Chicago where our average age is close to 80. In Maywood, it's actually closer to 70. We have a number of people who in that community were aging in place in homes that were, for various reasons, they were ready to move out of, and more we're getting people actually who are moving in at an earlier age. We anticipate that'll be hopefully more of the case here in Deerfield, that our age range will hopefully be closer to age 70 than age 80. But for the program overall, this genuine guess, but just from working in this industry for a while, that the average at the industry is closer to 80.
Does the state license require a certain amount of maintenance and upkeep for the building and for the interior, and make sure it's well maintained?
Absolutely. Both the tax credit program and the supported living program have pretty strenuous requirements in that front. So for healthcare and family services, there's a licensing process that goes on, and if there are reports, if there's issues from a resident or from a care provider that's providing services there, we are reviewed. There's visits generally on a 2 to 3 times per year. The state reviewers will come and review the property. Because there's reimbursements for Medicaid services are provided by medical care organizations, MCOs. There's 4 or 5 that are contracted with the state of Illinois that provide reimbursements, and they each also provide annual visits to the property. That's for everything from care provision, inspecting the kitchen, the service provision, and the quality of the property. On top of that, the tax credit program, the requirements for our investors around both compliance and physical care, because again, they're in this property for at a bare minimum 15 years for compliance. And so if there's capital issues that affect the performance of the property, or it's, let's say occupancy is dropping, they aren't getting their tax credits, they're very unhappy with us.
Okay.
The original development on this site that we approved and were very disappointed when it didn't go through was kind of win-win for us. It incorporated our desire to have affordable housing, and it also combined some sustainability features in the building and on the site. Mm-hmm. I don't really see anything regarding sustainability in your packet here. Is that something that had been considered? Are these things going to be included?
They can do about 10 times better than I can answering that question.
Okay. So. It was one of the great appeal to many of us.
Hi, my name is Delia Kanash.
I want to bring the mic down a little bit.
Sure.
There you go. Got it?
Sure. Hi, my name is Delia Kanash. I'm an architect and owner at Assemble Design Workshop. We're a woman-owned architecture firm located in nearby Wilmette.
Yeah.
We focus on mission-driven projects such as affordable housing and civic architecture. In regards to sustainability, we are actually following a fairly stringent sustainability code called Enterprise Green Communities that is mandated by IDA, which is one of the funding sources. That standard, in turn, incorporates another standard called Energy multifamily. Chris, help me. Energy Star multifamily new construction. Right. Thank you. It's a very restrictive standard. We have a lot of rules to abide by in terms of efficiency. So we are following, and that's going from the energy use, the light sources that we specify, the outside lighting, interior lighting, insulation. So it's quite stringent. We will also be required to pass a door blower test at the unit level. So there is a lot of. It's a door blower test.
You heard it right.
It's fairly that's making sure that it's making sure that the envelope is very tight. That there's not a lot of air leakage through the building envelope. So there's a lot of thought and care put into that.
So building materials, the landscaping materials, all those things, we're looking at sustainability as we construct this.
We are, as a firm, we're very focused to that. I am personally, Passive House certified. It's also another energy standard.
Great.
And our team is our landscape team is focusing on native plantings, materials that require very little maintenance that will thrive in this environment.
Great. Thank you.
Of course.
If I could just add one other element of that. The Assemble team worked with us, and not to take anything away from the previous development, but really went out of their way to study the surrounding community. The Heritage Woods property that was proposed, the development team has properties that look a lot like that all over the state, and they're great, successful properties. This property was built to fit this location. It blends with everything around it, as you saw from the presentation before. We've also increased the undeveloped portion of this site in terms of open, undeveloped space there too. And, so thank you for the question, though.
And so you anticipate the residents will be from our area, or do you think you anticipate you'll be drawing people to live here from far away?
Yeah. So we commissioned the market study from an analyst based here in Evanston, Valerie Kretschmer, who's worked in affordable housing in Illinois for 40 years. Her market study showed a capture rate, and the capture rate is basically for every unit available, how many eligible people who fit at that income tier are there. Normally for an affordable housing development to make sense, you want there to be at least 5. Our capture rate was about 20, meaning for every unit there's roughly 20 eligible seniors just within our primary market area.
So you demonstrated that we do have a need here. There are people here who need to live there.
That's correct. More than you would to be able to establish, much more than you would need to just to even be able to establish, find investor impact and interest for it. One thing I'll just say anecdotally, I live in Glencoe. I live right nearby. I've gotten dozens of phone calls from people, including real estate brokers, various called and said, my father living in sort of assisted cannot afford to market rate private pay. So we're in one situation who had to move him out to Huntley. It takes me an hour each way to go visit him, but we couldn't find anything in his range. We think that this is a very, actually much more of a need here than probably people are willing to always state. But again, this is not subsidized housing. It's for people who are on Medicaid, and people on fixed incomes generally work well within this program.
Thank you.
There's a gap. There's a hole that needs to be filled.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're engaged with a affordable housing consultant because we have a number of projects, each with affordable housing component in it. And we'd like to have you work with that affordable housing consultant too, just to collaborate a little bit. I don't know if there are any special guidelines that come with the state application, the state license, but if you could work with our consultant just to, as this moves forward, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
And educate us. I mean, that's much of what they do is just what's the market, right? What does that look like? Where are the people coming from?
I'm close with the team at HOCD, and I know they've got their property underway as well on Deerfield Road that they're really excited about. We're all excited for everything you guys are doing here. So happy to be part of that.
Terrific.
For sure.
Questions over here? To the left? Nothing? To the right?
Nothing.
Okay. Are there any public comment? All right, so now I will call for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Which takes us to 2483, consideration of an ordinance amending and restating approval for an amendment to the special use permit for an industrial plan unit development, an amendment to final development plan, an amendment to special use for an assisted living facility, and zoning exceptions for the property located at 1101 and 1121 Leg Cook Road for the Deerfield Supportive Living Facility. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 2484, resolution approving a development agreement for the property located at 1101 and 1121 Lake Hook Road, the Deerfield Supported Living Facility. Is there a motion?
Move to accept the resolution.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
And Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you guys for your hard work, your perseverance in getting this through and taking over this project. We welcome you. Thank you. New business, item 2482, a resolution approving a First Amendment to a power supply agreement with MC Squared Energy Services for the village's electricity aggregation program.
Thank you, Mayor. The village has been a member of the North Shore Electricity Aggregation Consortium since 2012. In addition to Deerfield, that includes the communities of Glencoe, Highland Park, Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, Northbrook, and Skokie. Most recently, it was in 2021 that the NSEAC, North Shore Electricity Aggregation Consortium members, sought proposals for a new electricity supply contract for each of our respective communities. We entered into a competitive bidding process and commenced a 3-year program term, which is now expiring at the end of next month. To continue the electricity aggregation program without interruption, the NSEAC member communities are recommending approval of a contract amendment to the power supply agreement with MC Squared. The village board will recall that the current electricity aggregation program is a price match program, so each month customers, whether you're in the program or out of the program, will always pay the ComEd default rate. At the end of the 1-year extension, should it be approved tonight, the village will receive a $40,000 civic contribution. To date, we have used that civic contribution to purchase 24 million kilowatt hours of renewable energy credits. That's a significant amount of RECs, renewable energy credits, that have been purchased. That has offset a substantial amount of energy consumption from the total village consumption, meaning all users within the village, the residential customers, the commercial customer base. And because of that, we have been able to earn the designation as a U.S. EPA Green Power Community. If the program is continued, residents will continue into this aggregation program. It's an opt-out program. They can choose to opt out if they wish to. There's no reason to opt out because, again, it's a price match. But customers will still be ComEd customers for the distribution and delivery and metering purposes. They will continue to pay ComEd in the same way they pay ComEd today. They will continue to call ComEd in the event of a power outage, and there will be no enrollment or early termination fees should they wish to exit the program. So notably, residents are required to do nothing to participate in the program. Staff's recommending approval of the 1-year extension with the power supply agreement with MC Squared. And I should note that all of the consortium community members are bringing this to the board this month, and we're moving forward in a unified recommendation approach.
Questions? I have one. How many green power communities are there?
In the U.S., the list is not that long. Maybe it looks like maybe 50 or
that's it
in the entire United States that I probably saw on the list. Okay. I don't think I'm too far off on that number. I can get back to you and
that's good
let you
enough
know.
For me. That's good enough for me.
It's a good thing.
It's certainly, indicative of the board's direction to try and
Right.
be more aware and act accordingly to
Mhm.
our energy footprint.
And so by the end of this program, when this contract now expires, should it be approved, that'd be over $200,000 in civic contributions that the village has been able to receive from this program, and all of those dollars have been used to advance sustainability programs in the village.
Nice. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Benton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's 122.
Oh, what?
They just updated it.
How many?
122 referendums.
Still, that's not a lot at all.
And the closest one is Buffalo Grove.
Items for discussion by the mayor and the board. Does anyone have anything they want to say before I have a couple of things? No? No? All right. Last week I went to the ribbon cutting for Kingswood Church, and that's, in case anyone doesn't know, that's right across the street.
It's the Methodist Church.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it was lovely. They have done some interior remodeling, and it looks great. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, September 3rd. Monday is the holiday, so we'll go to the next day on Tuesday. We have our committee of a whole meeting scheduled now for August 26th at 3 p.m. So please throw that in your calendars.
And Dan's staff is meeting with Bob. He can't be there at 3, but we're going to be meeting with Bob ahead of that time to get his comments and his
Good.
input.
Good.
I can't be there at 3.
At all, or
I'm
just at
just going to
3?
be late.
Okay.
I have a meeting in Skokie till 3.
All right, we'll see you when we see you. Our final food truck Wednesday is this Wednesday, August 21st from 4:30 to 8. Like last year, it's been a success, a great success. I would say even better than last year. We have more trucks, more people, more activity, more of everything. Thank you both for doing a great job. We've had a recent rash of cars that have been broken into in the last week or so, and stuff taken out of the cars. The cars themselves have not been taken or stolen, but the stuff inside has. What's in common? They're unlocked.
Right.
Please, everyone, lock your doors, lock your car doors.
It's important to know also that if you leave the car door open, even though there's nothing in the car, most cars have an attachment to open the garage doors, and you can burglarize the garage, or heaven help you, if there's nobody in the house, you can take the stuff out of the house.
So please, lock your cars. Tonight, we took action on 3 major items, and I'm very proud of all of us in doing that. They're important. Between the SLIF, and that went through some ebbs and flows and twists and turns, Continental, and our new adjudication system, those are big time approvals and things that we've done. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for doing that, being patient with staff, and looking at these projects very thoughtfully and responsibly. Big deal. So thank you for that. That's all I got. You got anything?
I just want to say thanks to the board for the committee of the whole attention. We're going to get next Monday. We're jumping into budget season, and we're excited about what we have to present to you, and we think we got some good options. So we're happy to make those presentations and really appreciate the team's effort, every department, in putting that together. So we look forward to that.
And it does go without saying what I just said about the big items. It's not just this board, but it's the staff, and it's all the planning and everyone behind that, the plan commission, et cetera, that really looked at all these projects very carefully and got it ready for us to look at and approve. So I thank them as well. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A second? Is there a second?
Second.
There you go. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Meeting adjourned. Motion passed.